In Christianity, we've all heard of the crucifixion, Jesus on the cross, the nails, the crown of thorns, and the agony. But there's a hidden story, not found in most Bibles, that's kept alive in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. It involves two of the most powerful angels, Michael and Uriel, and a mysterious act involving the blood of Christ. If you've never heard of this, you're about to discover one of the most fascinating and powerful hidden events of the crucifixion. Picture the scene at Golgotha, the place of the skull, where Jesus is crucified. The air is thick with grief and tension. Roman soldiers stand guard, 3 crosses are raised, and Jesus of Nazareth is hanging on the central one. His body is broken from hours of suffering. Below, some mourners weep, while others mock him. The soldiers carry out their grim duties, used to executing criminals in this brutal way. When the soldiers approach to break the legs of those crucified, they find that Jesus is already dead. Instead of breaking his legs, a soldier thrusts a spear into Jesus' side, and out flows both blood and water. This moment, seemingly unimportant, actually fulfills 2 ancient prophecies. The unbroken bones fulfill Psalm 34 verse 20, and the piercing fulfills Zechariah 12 verse 10. But there's more to the story that most of us never hear. The blood and water that flowed from Jesus' side, while significant medically, also carries a deeper, spiritual meaning. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which holds ancient traditions, teaches that something extraordinary happened at that moment, something unseen by earthly eyes. According to their tradition, angels were present, specifically Archangel Uriel, who had a divine mission. Uriel, along with Michael, was not just observing the crucifixion, but actively involved in a sacred task. While humans saw only sorrow and suffering, these angels were fulfilling God's divine plan. Why were they there? What could be so important that even heavenly beings would gather at this moment of pain and loss? To understand this, we need to learn about Uriel, a powerful angel whose name means, God is my light, or, fire of God. Though Uriel is recognized in some traditions, he is notably absent from many versions of the Bible. Despite his important role in history, why does Uriel remain unmentioned in the Bible? What was it about him that made his story too controversial for inclusion? Uriel stands among the 7 archangels in various traditions, known for illuminating divine mysteries and guiding humanity through spiritual darkness. But you won't find him in the Protestant or Catholic Bibles. They only name Michael and Gabriel. Michael is God's warrior, defending his people, and Gabriel is God's messenger, bringing pivotal announcements. Uriel, however, is a hidden gem, deeply respected in some circles but invisible in others. The reason for Uriel's absence from the Bible can be traced to how the Bible was formed. Church leaders set strict standards for which texts could be included in the Bible. Writings featuring Uriel, like the Book of Enoch, didn't meet these standards. But these texts tell fascinating stories of Uriel revealing heavenly mysteries and even guarding the gates of Eden. While many traditions mention other angels, Uriel's absence remains curious, especially when considering his significance in certain communities, like the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. The Church preserves the ancient stories of Uriel, particularly the homily on the Archangel Uriel, which records his involvement in one of Christianity's most pivotal moments, the crucifixion. According to this tradition, Uriel's actions during Christ's death had a profound impact on an entire nation. When Jesus' side was pierced, Uriel was there with a divine purpose. He took Christ's blood into a chalice of light, fulfilling a sacred mission that tied Ethiopia directly to the sacrifice of Christ. As Uriel collected the blood, it wasn't just a symbolic act, it was a divine strategy with Ethiopia in mind. This connection established Ethiopia as a sacred land, chosen by God for a special purpose in Christian history. While mourners were grieving and soldiers were dividing Christ's garments, Uriel was busy with a celestial task. With his wings extended, he dipped them into the blood of Christ and collected it in his radiant chalice. This act, hidden from earthly eyes, would later have a profound impact on the nation of Ethiopia. According to Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, this divine act sanctified the soil of Ethiopia, marking it as holy ground. The blood of Christ, through the angelic work of Uriel, set apart Ethiopia in a unique and sacred way. Ethiopia became one of the earliest nations to embrace Christianity, and this divine act is believed to have been a crucial moment in that spiritual journey. The blood of Christ, collected by Uriel, was seen as marking the land and blessing it with a special connection to Christ's sacrifice. As Uriel and Michael flew from Jerusalem to Ethiopia, they scattered the sacred blood over the land, marking it for future churches and monasteries. This divine blessing made Ethiopia a chosen nation, a direct link to Christ's crucifixion, and a land where Christian faith would take root early and deeply. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church's connection to this sacred moment is part of a larger theological framework where the blood of Christ, through Uriel's actions, sanctifies the land and marks it as holy. In Ethiopian iconography, the chalice that held Christ's blood is often depicted as a radiant cup, symbolizing both the blood it contained and the deep connection between Ethiopia and Christ's sacrifice. This story, though absent from most Bibles, has been preserved in Ethiopian tradition for centuries, forming the core of Ethiopian Christian identity. For believers in Ethiopia, the blood of Christ is not just a theological concept, it's a living, breathing part of their history, a spiritual reality that connects them directly to the events of Calvary. In one of Christianity's oldest traditions, Uriel, an archangel, plays a crucial role that is absent from Western religious texts. What cosmic truths did Uriel reveal, and why were these insights deemed too mysterious for wider inclusion in the Bible? This brings us to a remarkable moment when Uriel entered human history during the crucifixion of Jesus. At the moment the Roman soldier pierced Jesus' side with a spear, something extraordinary occurred that isn't recorded in the Gospels. As blood and water flowed from the Savior's wound, Ethiopian tradition teaches that Uriel was there with a divine mission. The angel held a chalice of light, a vessel created for this very moment in history. While mourners grieved and soldiers gambled for Christ's garments, Uriel, invisible to earthly eyes, carried out a sacred task. He extended his wings, dipping them into the blood of Christ and carefully collecting it in his chalice. This act was significant, not just for the moment but for an entire nation, as Ethiopian Orthodox tradition links Christ's sacrifice directly to their land. The blood of Christ, collected by Uriel, established a divine connection between Ethiopia and the crucifixion. Uriel, together with Michael, heaven's mightiest warrior, played a pivotal role in this sacred mission. Their partnership highlights the importance of the task, two powerful angels working together for a divine purpose. This act placed Ethiopia in a unique position in Christian history. While other nations received Christianity through later missionaries, Ethiopian tradition asserts that their connection to Christ began at the very moment of his sacrifice. The blood collected by Uriel sanctified Ethiopia, marking it as holy ground. In Ethiopian Orthodox belief, this divine event established Ethiopia as a nation chosen by God for a special role in Christian history. The blood in Uriel's chalice became deeply symbolic in Ethiopian Christianity. It represents both Christ's blood and the nation's direct link to his sacrifice. In Ethiopian iconography, the chalice appears as a radiant cup, emanating divine light, signifying the transfer of holiness from Calvary to Ethiopian soil. But Uriel and Michael's mission didn't end with collecting the blood. After gathering it, the archangels embarked on an extraordinary journey. Flying from Jerusalem to Ethiopia, they sprinkled Christ's blood across the land, sanctifying it. Every drop that touched Ethiopian soil made it holy ground. This purposeful flight marked locations that would later become sacred Christian sites in Ethiopia, where churches and monasteries would rise. Why Ethiopia? The Ethiopian Orthodox Church believes that God specifically chose their land for this divine blessing. As the Roman soldiers gambled for Jesus' garments, Uriel and Michael were already marking Ethiopia as a holy land. This sacred blessing bore fruit when Ethiopia became one of the first nations to adopt Christianity as its official religion in the 4th century. This divine act planted the spiritual seeds of Christianity in Ethiopia long before it became a state religion. Ancient Ethiopian monasteries are seen as direct results of the archangel's work. These sites became places where Uriel was venerated for his blessings, not only for spiritual prosperity but also for the nation's agricultural growth. Today, Ethiopia is home to some of the oldest and most revered Christian churches in the world. The connection between these sacred sites and the blood sanctification is deeply rooted in Ethiopian Christian consciousness. For Ethiopian Orthodox believers, their Holy Communion ceremony is a profound expression of reverence for Christ's blood, as they worship on land sanctified by the angel's actions. In this tradition, Ethiopia's deep spiritual connection to the crucifixion and its unique place in Christian history are forever tied to the sacred blood of Christ, collected by Uriel and Michael. Ethiopia's spiritual and national identity is deeply rooted in its religious traditions, explaining why Christianity took such a strong hold in the country and why their faith has withstood centuries of challenges. The story of the blood sanctification connects Ethiopian believers directly to the crucifixion of Jesus through the actions of archangels Uriel and Michael. While modern skeptics may question the absence of this narrative from the Bible, for Ethiopian Orthodox believers, this omission doesn't diminish its truth. Many sacred traditions exist outside the Bible but are still central to Christian communities worldwide. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church has preserved this story through centuries of oral tradition and written homilies, passing it faithfully from generation to generation. This narrative is presented through both words and images. If you visit an Ethiopian Orthodox church today, you'll notice something unique about how they depict the angel Uriel. While Uriel is rarely seen in Western churches, in Ethiopia, he is prominent among the angels, holding a cup filled with red liquid. This image is not just a decorative detail, it symbolizes his sacred task at the crucifixion of Jesus. In Ethiopian church art, every detail has significance. The cup Uriel holds tells the story of his divine mission. These vibrant paintings act as windows into the heavenly realm, allowing believers to connect with the sacred narrative when words alone are not enough. Across Ethiopian churches, Uriel's cup helps guide the faithful in understanding their faith. In the ancient rock-cut churches of Lalibela, for example, paintings show Uriel lifting his cup toward heaven, with the red liquid inside symbolizing the blood he collected from Jesus' side. Some paintings even depict Uriel with red-tipped wings, a subtle reference to the angel dipping his feathers into Christ's wound. Even in modern Ethiopian Orthodox churches, Uriel is depicted with his cup, continuing a centuries-old tradition that connects past and present believers. The red color used in these images holds profound meaning, as it is linked to the Christian understanding of the Eucharist. One expert on Ethiopian church traditions notes that the picture of Uriel with the cup connects to the communion cup used in churches worldwide. The cup in Uriel's hands is a reminder of sacrifice and salvation, not just for saving souls, but for making Ethiopia's land holy. This sacred art bridges the gap between the biblical story and today's worship practices, especially during Holy Communion. In Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, wine mixed with water during the communion service symbolizes the blood and water that flowed from Jesus' side. When Ethiopian Orthodox believers pray before these images of Uriel, they are joining in a sacred connection that links them to a story that is nearly 2,000 years old. This ongoing tradition helps preserve Ethiopia's unique Christian identity, one that developed independently of European influences and survived centuries of isolation from other Christian communities. During times when Ethiopia was cut off from other Christian nations due to the spread of Islam, these images acted as silent teachers, preserving vital religious concepts that might have been lost. When missionaries finally reached Ethiopia, they were astonished to find a robust Christian community with their own rich traditions and art. Ethiopian Orthodox believers view these images as more than mere pictures, they are seen as windows into heaven, tangible symbols of divine truth that allow worshippers to become part of the sacred story. Praying before a picture of Uriel with his cup isn't just an act of remembrance, it's a direct connection to the holy event. This tradition highlights that Christianity has evolved in diverse ways across cultures. Ethiopia's depiction of Uriel collecting Christ's blood goes beyond folklore, it connects believers directly to Calvary, making Jesus' redemption personal and immediate for the Ethiopian homeland. However, there is another aspect of the crucifixion we have yet to discuss, the final words Jesus spoke before he died. Most people are familiar with Jesus' last words, but the true meaning behind them is often missed. There is a deeper, darker significance to what Jesus said, one that reveals a shocking truth about his experience on the cross. These words offer a powerful and unsettling insight into what Jesus was truly enduring. Don't miss this critical part of the story. Click the video now to discover the hidden meaning behind Jesus' final words, as understanding this is essential to fully grasping what happened at Calvary.